Welcome back to 16 weeks of Sats with myself, Andrew. And if you've been continuing to work hard, first of all, well done. Keep getting stuck in. This week, we're going to be looking at commas. And with commas, there's a few different variations of how we need to think about using them. But again, from your journey within primary school, you will have been using commas all the time, and you'll already have a really good understanding of what commas are all about and how you need to use them within your writing. And we're going to take that information and use it really, really simply within the SPaG paper. So one of the first instances that we need to think about, and one of the simpler ways, is to really just think about commas in a list. Okay, so when we're listing items, we have the apple, the orange, and the banana. We're going to have apple, comma, orange, and banana. Okay, so again, you're going to get questions like that where we're having to insert commas to organize a list of items. And again, it might say the shoe, the hat, the shirt, and the shorts. Again, you're going to have to insert multiple commas as well as understand how to utilize the and within the last part of the list. So relatively straightforward. Then we've got moments when we've got maybe things like parentheses where we're going to have to use commas to mark the parentheses. Also in certain instances like fronted adverbials where we're having to use a comma to mark the fronted adverbial. So there's lots of different examples where we've got to use them. And thankfully, that's what this video is all about. We're going to be diving into all these different SATs examples. There are quite a few. I think there's about 8 or 9 different examples where we've got to utilize the comma to get those marks. So without further ado, let's get straight into commas and see how we can smash them in our SATs.
So let's take a look at the first reason why we'd be using a comma. So one of the main reasons is to use them for marking fronted adverbials. Really, really straightforward. And again, with year 6, you should be really familiar with using fronted adverbials and marking them with a comma. Okay, so again, use a comma after a fronted adverbial, and here are some examples. After the long journey, comma, we finally arrived at the campsite. In the morning, comma, the sun rose over the mountains. And really, really simply, that allows us to mark that clause for the reader to allow them to understand where something's happening, how long something's taken, the time of day, etc. Okay, so again, relatively straightforward, and fronted adverbials, something that you guys will be really confident with. And then again, secondly, we've got commas for lists. And again, the key bit is just separating items. So in this example, we have the torch, we have the map, the water bottle, and some snacks. So we have 4 things within the list. And again, the first 3, a torch, comma, a map, comma, and a water bottle, and some snacks. Okay, so the last 2 items are always separated by and on its own, and the other items are separated by a comma. And again, you will know that already. And again, here we go. We've got lions, zebras, giraffes, elephants, and rhinos. Again, the lions, zebras, and giraffes and elephants are all separated by commas. And then the final 2 in the list, the elephants and the rhinos, are just separated by and. And again, this helps clear confusion, and it makes it really simple as to what we're actually saying. We're looking for that clarity with the use of the comma. So 2 main reasons: front adverbial clauses, and the second reason, commas for lists. Let's take a look at some of the examples. Now, this first example is more of the use of parentheses. Okay, so when we have a pair of commas, this is where we have some additional information that's relevant to the first clause. And again, without this additional information, the remainder of the sentence is going to continue to make sense. So let's show you this example. So a pair of commas. I enjoy sitting in my bedroom, and we can normally, with a comma, we can hear that natural pause when we're reading it. I enjoy sitting in I enjoy sitting in my bedroom, even though it's quite small, and listening to music. So again, without the commas, it doesn't sort of read particularly well. So we'll put the commas in. And again, we've got a comma here and a comma here. And we have essentially this parentheses is sitting in the middle, additional information that's telling us a little bit more about the sitting in the bedroom. But again, I enjoy sitting in my bedroom and listening to music. So this sentence essentially would make sense on its own, and we have this additional information relating to the bedroom. So even though it's quite small, okay? So again, we're marking that with parentheses, 2 commas, and it's as simple as that to get the mark. And again, with this question, just to back that up, if we see pair of commas, so insert a pair of commas in the correct place in the sentence below, that's generally going to be pair of commas, we're thinking parentheses. Okay. So again, if we read through, Jenna, a very gifted singer, won the talent competition that was held in her local theatre. Now again, hopefully we can just see that the commas would call a very gifted singer, because this is just additional information about Jenna. If we got rid of a very gifted singer and just read on, Jenna won the talent competition that was held in her local theatre. All the remainder of the sentence makes sense on its own. That's why we need the commas to show that this is just additional information telling us more about Jenna. Okay, so very simple, 2 commas, we've got the mark, let's move on. So again, insert a comma in the correct place in the sentence below. And again, this is linking to clauses and the fact that we have a subordinate clause and a main clause. We know it's a subordinate clause because we have a sentence beginning with a subordinating conjunction, and that clause is although he was the youngest. Okay, so to mark that, naturally we're going to have that comma here. So although he was the youngest, Tom was one of the tallest. Very simple, classic clause question. And again, we want it the right size, very simple, and it's that easy to get that mark. Although he was the youngest. And a good way of knowing if this works is with these clauses, we could put this clause first and it still read well. Tom was one of the tallest, although he was the youngest. So we could switch that sentence around and it would make sense because we have 2 functioning clauses. So we've put the comma in the correct place and we've got the mark. Okay, so with this example, let's read it. And this is all about clarity. We're using commas to gain clarity within the sentence. And to make it clear that Anna has 4 favourite things. And it's this bit here, the 4, that's important, because when we read this sentence, the natural instinct is for we've got to be clear on 4 things. So watch. Anna's favourite things are camping, holidays, cycling, and swimming. Now, depending on how we read this sentence, camping holidays could be read as 1 thing, cycling and swimming, but that would only leave us with 3. So we would have camping, holidays, cycling, and swimming. But the problem with this is that we need to have 4 favourite things. So really what that is camping, holidays, cycling, and swimming. So if we can see that, we can then punctuate that with the commas correctly. So we're going to need camping, holidays, cycling, and swimming. So we needed to add 2 commas. So Anna's favourite things are camping, holidays, cycling, and swimming. Very simple, but very easy also to have just punctuated camping, holidays, comma, and cycling and swimming, and only actually clarified 3 of her favourite things. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Let's move on to the next one. Once again, and now this is really good to see this, is that insert a pair of commas. So what we can take here is that these are really common question types. Insert a pair of commas in the correct place in the sentence below. Again, so we're thinking parentheses. My father, who works at the museum, gave my class a guided tour. So again, should be really obvious that we've got additional information about my father, who works at the museum. So my father gave my class a guided tour. So this could function as a sentence on its own. This is additional information about my father. So we use the 2 commas to show that. And again, we have a relative pronoun starting this as well. With this example, we're just looking at a standard fronted adverbial. Okay, so insert 1 comma in the correct place in the sentence below. And again, every night. So this wouldn't read well, every night, Dad. Every night, Dad. So it needs to be every night. Dad and my brother take the dog for a walk. So the comma is literally just jumping in here straight away, and it's as simple as that with this question. Every night, Dad and my brother take the dog for a walk. And this fronted adverbial is just giving us the time and the frequency of when something's happening. Really simple comma dropped in, 5 seconds, job done and an easy mark. So here's a variation of comma question types. And essentially, if we read this sentence, it's a list. It's an expanded list of things that Joe did. And as soon as we can see that, it should be easier to punctuate. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework, and started. So there's four. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework, and started. So again, it's just an expanded list. So we need to make sure that the four things that Joe did are separated with commas and then and at the end. So if we read through this, we should naturally come to the conclusion. So Joe went upstairs. So again, Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer. So there's no flaw really there. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework, and started. We don't like that comma there. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer. So again, after that, we would have liked to have seen a comma. Joe went, and that one's obviously just wrong. Joe went, comma. Joe went upstairs, turned on his computer, took out his homework, and started. So the rules that we know of commas, we've got one event, another event, and the final event, the fact that Joe started. So again, we should be really easily and happily be seeing that, ticking it, getting the mark, and moving on. So again, these sort of questions aren't particularly common, but again, this is all about clarity, the comma creating clarity when it comes to the actual words that we're using. So explain how the comma changes the meaning of the second sentence. So when we're writing, it's really important to do what the question's asking, is to explain how the second sentence has changed, all right? So I asked if Jake, Thomas, Lily, and Lily were coming to the barbecue. And then the second one, I asked if Jake, Thomas, and Lily were coming to the barbecue. And in essence, any answer that tells us that there are 3 children in the second sentence, then that's exactly the right answer. So explain how the comma changes the meaning of the second sentence. In the second, and we probably don't even need to explain it this much, sentence, there are 3 children. And again, let's just make sure we punctuate our answer correctly with a capital letter and a full stop as well. But essentially here, because there's no clarity in this sentence, this child could be called Jake Thomas, and this child is called Lily. Whereas in this sentence, we have Jake, we have Thomas, and we have Lily. So again, the hardest bit with this is that some of you will spend forever explaining sentence 1 and sentence 2 and end up writing down here. We don't want to do that. We just need to explain how the comma changes the meaning of the sentence. And all the comma does is change the fact that there are 2 children in this sentence and there are 3 children in this one. And to finish this, we have another example of these, which sentence is punctuated correctly. Now, again, if we just read through them, we've clearly got a fronted adverbial that we can see here at the start. So for me, these two straight away don't really read particularly well. Lately, the days, comma. So again, if we know front adverbials, this isn't really grammatically telling us anything correctly about the manner, the time, the duration, because really it would just be lately. Okay, so straight away I'm sort of leaning towards these two. And again, when I look at this first sentence, the position of this comma just tells me that this is wrong. Lately, the days have been growing noticeably longer and warmer. It doesn't really read well, and we can see that that's just in the wrong position. You don't ever really see this. So if we read the last one, lately, the days have been growing noticeably longer and warmer. Again, that reads really well. So very simple. We've got front adverbial marked, tick. Job done, point or mark secured. And just to finish with, we've got some examples of different question types. These two are asking for a certain type of comma use. These two are a certain type of comma use. And the final two are slightly separate again. So have a go at those, work out where you might be inserting the commas, and I'll see you when you've finished having a go.
Welcome back and well done. Well done for getting stuck straight into commas. And hopefully you've seen that transition from your writing lessons over the past 5 years in primary school, that everything that you already know about commas is just being tested within the SATs paper. And they're going to give you different examples of where you need to apply that. But the commas in a list, marking clauses, all really straightforward knowledge that you will all already have. It's just about having a look at those examples, which we've just looked at. There isn't going to be probably anything much different than those, being very confident with those examples, marking the comma, and very simple. And the other thing just to remember that we've said in the videos is to just think about the size of the comma as well and how you're marking that. It shouldn't be so large. It should be bridging that imaginary line where the letters are sat on and just making sure that it's a sensible size and that it's nice and clear so that the markers can see it when they come to assess the paper. So well done this week with getting stuck into commas. Be sure to check out all the other videos on YouTube and the different social media platforms where all the other arithmetic and SPaG, and there's a few reading videos on there as well if you're interested in the reading paper and how to get those extra marks. So keep going, keep working hard with your SATs, and I'll see you in the next video of 16 weeks of SATs.